Welcome back to Rockstar 101. His name is Brandon. He is the DJ.
His name is Shim. He is the Rockstar. Class is in session. Now, the topic for today's podcast, I don't remember if we teased it in the last episode or if it was one of those things that we were talking about after we were done recording. But the big question is, what is butt rock? Because I think we both have different definitions, and something that I have learned through time is I think butt rock has a different definition depending on where you grew up.
Oh, yeah. So, well, most things do, right?
Yes and no. I mean, heavy metal, it's kind of consistent across the globe.
Yeah.
Alternative was kind of or grunge was consistent. Although, interestingly enough, grunge wasn't necessarily like, they pretty much picked any band from Seattle in the early 90s and they dubbed them grunge. When it wasn't even, grunge was a lifestyle.
The biggest argument about grunge was that it wasn't, every band who was considered a grunge band was like, dude, what the fuck is grunge and where did it come from and why are you calling me this bullshit? Because fucking Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and Soundgarden all sounded so different, and they respected each other as bands, but they were like, dude, we make a point of not sounding like that band. We're trying to sound like us. And they used to resent it. And then, ironically, people used to move to Seattle just so they could try to be called a grunge band. Put on their flannel shit around their waists and stuff. I remember I knew grunge became mainstream as fuck when they started selling jeans that had flannel, the bottom half of a flannel shirt and it was sewed into the jeans.
That was sewn into the jeans? Yeah. I don't think I ever saw those.
Those things existed for a while. Might have only been in Australia. We used to schlock and hang on to some of the fashion ideas that used to come up in the States, but...
Like you would carry it on a little bit longer than it really needed to be. Like the United States had moved on to something else and Australia was still grasping to it.
Australia has no cultural fashion identity apart from Crocodile Dundee. Like that's if you
mean like the vest, the teeth on the necklace, and the hat.
Yeah, but that's the ironic thing is that is still a very fashiony. Like no one walks around looking like Crocodile Dundee. People will walk around like if you go to the country and there are farmers. No,
you should.
I know I could rock that shit all day, but we're talking about real people. Because I'm an alien. I'm an alien. I'm an alien.
Coughing a lot.
Sorry, I don't have a cough button yet. But people will look like Steve Irwin, or they'll look like they look like farmers on any ranch in Texas. Like they've got their jeans and their whatever, and they got their cowboy hat, and that's it.
Do you guys rock big belt buckles down there?
No, we don't do that. You guys have got the big belt buckle thing. Aussie farmers are much more just like what do you call it? Functional wear. Like we actually get the job done. We don't walk around.
Oh, really?
We don't walk around like a little bit of this and a little bit of that with the big buckle going. I'm half Bruce Lee and half John Wayne, and I also run a farm. You see.
Why do you sound like you're trying to do a Bill Cosby impersonation?
I know,
because you see here, we just walk around with the functional, not the big belt buckle. Yeah, pudding rape. What?
So your definition of butt rock?
So my definition of butt rock is like the hair bands from the 80s, like Twisted Sister, Motley Crue, bands like that. And this was even a project I did when I was in college. One of the final projects you do in the radio broadcasting school I went to was create your own radio station. And you did it from top to bottom.
I did that.
Yeah. Did you?
Yeah, I'll tell you about my foray into radio after we talk about this.
So we had to look at how much it was going to be to purchase a license to broadcast. You had to look at everything from your entire staff to your equipment that you were going to use to broadcast, the equipment that you were going to use for your promotions team, your staff, the kind of music you're going to play. Like, I mean, truly everything had to be covered. And this was a big group project, and I was the group leader for my group. And we were trying to figure out a format, and there was, I think one group did a Spanish station because that's kind of when, at least in Portland, there was more Spanish stations popping up throughout the city. And then this was when the Jack or Charlie format popped up, which is kind of that eclectic format where it's kind of they play a little bit of everything. Like it's truly just
why is it called
box.
Jack and Charlie?
It's because of where it started, I believe. No, it's Jack.
Okay, wait. I thought you knew. Do you want to go down this rabbit hole? I want to get to butt rock.
Okay, we'll get to butt rock. So we'll get to the Jack FM stuff
We'll
later.
do that. We'll do that after the highlights. Yeah, the outtakes. But go for it.
So for me, butt rock was 80s rock. And so our format was
That's hair metal. That's hair metal, right?
Yeah, like hair metal was butt rock to me.
So
like
why? Why was it defined as butt rock? Why would when you would think of it being called butt rock? Did you ever question it, or was it just like, yeah, you go to the grocery store, food was made at the store, you just don't question?
No,
where
the association was butt rock was a funny term, and we found those bands funny because of the tights, because of the big hair and the makeup, and it was just and everything that kind of went along with that genre. I was like, well, yeah, that's butt rock.
Right.
And I never really questioned it.
Right.
Not to say that, that Motley Crue wasn't great, or, Def Leppard, or Twisted Sister, or any of those bands are great. They're fantastic. That's what I grew up on. Like that's the music that I grew up listening to. But that was what we considered butt rock. And one of the parts of this school project, you had to even come up with a logo for your radio station, and ours was the Butt Rock Buddy. And it was this baby, because we were it was the rebirth of rock is the way we positioned the station. It was like KBBR, the rebirth of rock. And the logo was this baby with a mohawk and like the Motley Crue, how they would do like the black paint under their eyes and stuff. And I think he had a guitar too, or something like that.
We got to talk about later on. We'll talk about where Motley Crue came up. Why? I mean, I know we talked about the dirt. I don't remember any of that particular conversation. But the when we were, why did they start to come up with that stupid look? I mean, it's not stupid, but it's,
I don't know. That's something that's worth looking into, though.
It's bizarre, but anyway.
So that's where butt rock kind of came from me, and it was a whole radio station.
As you're telling me
but that
this
kind of 80s hair metal was what it was.
As you're telling me this, I'm coming to realize I didn't really think about what butt rock was. I didn't think about why it was called that. And I didn't know. I learned what butt rock was, or at least what my definition of it means, through my producer Tim when we started making the first record. And I would come up with these ideas that were very much like just the bands that were on the radio within the last 5 years. And so my definition of butt rock may be skewed in a very unique pile that's different than everyone else's, because Tim, my producer, was off with the fucking fairies. He lives on another planet. So like he may have just decided that was his definition, and no one else really figured it. No one heard about it. But for me, whenever I would come up with an idea that was generic, that was music by numbers, that was something that was the lowest common denominator, and there's nothing wrong with it, but it was, we're trying to be better than everyone else in the world. You're trying to achieve the greatest music in history ever. Like, you have a goal that's like the best ever, and you keep trying to reach that top tier goal, and then you land where you land. But if you make your goal to be like, the goal is to appeal to as many people, regardless of the message of your music, regardless of what it sounds like, regardless of the words, you just make something that sounds like all these other bands, because it's predetermined that will hopefully get on the radio and hopefully appease the A&R guy at the record label. And if butt rock was considered 80s and stuff, like 80s metal, but that stuff that you're talking about, it wasn't very philosophical music. It wasn't very introspective or spiritual.
No, it's party music,
it's party music. So I think that, like, but my definition of it,
Dr. Feelgood, we're not going to take it.
But our thing was that music sort of morphed into diet grunge, like in terms of like whatever people are just like listening to for the sake of having something to listen to. And bands like Nickelback and Creed and Saliva and
With arms wide open.
Those were the party bands now. Those in 2000 to 2005, and Limp Bizkit.
Creed wasn't a party band.
No, they weren't a party band. But Limp Bizkit and
Limp Bizkit was a party band.
Was a party band, and and Saliva was like, like it's either about like fighting.
I would say Saliva was too. Click Click Boom, stuff like that.
All that
Hell
stuff.
Yeah.
It's all just like, it's hype music. It's hype music. And I love hype music. But the Puppies albums, apart from like there was You're Going Down and there was War and those were fight songs and that was good stuff. There's a majority, especially on the first record, it was a lot more like trying to just... He had come off American Idiot, and they had made this, like, a few years earlier, Green Day had made this artistic statement that had crossed over into the mainstream as a huge rock album. So it was like, cool, so we can do that now. We don't have to do butt rock. You can do music that's trying to say something that's also hugely successful. So that was the definition of butt rock, man. That was it. That was butt rock.
Well,
I think my definition is dumb rock. It's literally music... That my definition was music that chooses to be dumb. Like
I think yours is closer to what most people identify as butt rock.
Really?
Because if you go to Urban Dictionary, this is the exact definition there. It says a style of hard rock or heavy metal music that is watered down both musically and lyrically to garner maximum radio play and mainstream acceptance.
Where is that? On Wikipedia?
The Urban Dictionary.
Oh, I'm totally fucking bang on. I didn't know. Okay, cool.
Lyrical themes are drawn from a put-on tough guy bro persona. And include being a badass, getting lots
badass
of pussy,
in quotes. Getting
strippers.
Lots of pussy. Awesome.
No, the tough guy bro part is in quotes though. Partying and being portrayed or alone, or being betrayed. Or alone. Image-wise, butt rock bands typically consist of guys in their mid-30s with spiky hair, affliction t-shirts, and bad tattoos. Usually barbed wire or tribal. The typical fan emulates this fashion style and exhibits what they think are, quote, manly personality traits, such as frequently drinking energy drinks, driving an unnecessarily large truck, and otherwise overcompensating for an insecurity in their masculinity. They also tend to have a superficial knowledge of metal music, being familiar only with bands that receive regular radio rotation. Examples of butt rock bands include...
Here we go.
Five Finger Death Punch.
Okay.
3 Days Grace. Buck Cherry. Nickelback. Disturbed, and 3 Doors Down.
Yep. I've toured with every single one of those bands.
I'm still sticking with my definition of butt rock because... we were calling the 80s band butt rock long before any of these bands were even around.
That just sounds like you're old, mate. Just makes you old.
I'm perfectly fine with that, goddammit.
I'm perfectly fine with that.
When I found
that's what you sound like. Cool whip.
Found
cool whip.
Another article. This one comes from 2014, and it's got the 10 top butt rock bands of all time. And it's got Theory of a Dead Man, 3 Days Grace, Puddle of Mud, Chevelle, Anne Berlin, Breaking Benjamin, 30 Seconds to Mars,
30 Seconds to
Stone
Mars.
Sour,
Okay.
Seether, and Shinedown. So you know what I get when I read an article like this?
What?
These are the douchey alt people who don't like music that gets radio play.
Yeah.
I understand maybe not liking it, but when I read lists like this, it always comes off as you're just an asshole who doesn't like the bands that actually make it on the radio.
Yeah.
And if the band that you like all of a sudden makes it big, or the band you like suddenly gets radio play, now they have to be butt rock because radio only plays the bad music.
Right.
Which, I mean, you're entitled to your opinion, but you're wrong. Like, because you shift your opinion based on everybody else's opinion. You don't like something for the sake of liking something. Like for me, I mean, Chino Moreno was just on Loudwire Nights with Tony earlier this week.
Yeah.
And he was saying, he's like, people shouldn't be embarrassed to like new metal because, the Deftones for a while there, it seemed like they were doing whatever they could to distance themselves from that new metal title. They didn't want to be really included in that. And a lot of bands were trying to do that.
Yeah.
Like those bands from the late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah, that new metal thing was cool. But then all of a sudden it became like, holy crap, this is something people just use in a derogatory term.
Yeah.
So then they wanted to distance themselves from that. And that's the kind of thing that actually bugs the hell out of me because maybe you grow out of a certain type of music, or maybe you grow past something, or you might look back and be like, geez, why did I like this? But the way that it swings and what I consider more derogatory is how easily people's opinions are changed based on somebody else having that opinion. And I think that's what happens. I think that's why Nickelback gets so much hate. That's one of the reasons that we've talked about on this podcast before, is the fact that they are very mainstream. They are cross-genre. Granted, they do have songs like Photograph where you're like, oof, like this is
I disagree with you. If I don't put that song on and go, oh my God, it's time to listen to Photograph. But when it comes, I don't get mad at it when it comes on the playlist. What the hell is on Joey's head?
Well, I'm not saying it's terrible. No, I kind of am. Like, it's just like,
but that's a good example of a butt rock song that's been well executed. It is very colloquial. Look at this photo. What the hell is on Joey's head, and why the hell are our eyes so red? It sounds like something, but this is why I give props to Chad. That is a song that sounds like you, and let me just propose.
To me?
Yeah. I propose something that could shift your perspective on it. And you be honest about your perspective.
I'm always honest. Let's do this.
I think the reason that song was so successful is because it sounds like your next door neighbor could have written it. If your next door neighbor was like, I've always wanted to write a song, and a friend of mine came over with a guitar and he played like these 4 chords that I've heard a million times in a million other songs, and I thought, so I just started singing like about this photograph that I found, and then like, what the hell's on Joey's head? How do our eyes get so red? Because we used to smoke a lot of weed, man. So whatever. And like, it sounds like something.
Well, no, the red reference in the photograph is from The Flash. That's what it's talking about.
Oh, I thought it was because they were stoned. He's like, how the hell?
No, I assumed that it was because when you have a photograph and the flash causes your eyes to go red.
I know, Chad. I'm pretty sure it's because they were high. Because you get the massive fucking red eyes. And also, I've seen the photograph and they're stoned. Like they put the photo up at the show. They have that photo in that line.
Oh, I haven't seen that. So.
And what the hell is on Joey's head? And he's wearing some stupid fucking tiara.
Is it a bong?
No, it's one of those oversized like a
weed.
What do you call it? Traffic cone. Anyway, so look, but here's my point.
I understand what you're saying. I agree.
Wait,
with you.
Let me ask my questions. Wait. Is the reason that you don't like the song because you hear it and you go, it sounds generic, sounds like everything a lot of other people have done, and it sounds like my neighbor could have written it, and it's like, but what is it that bugs you about it? Because I respect and accept that opinion. But I know Chad, and I know that he made all those choices because everyone. It draws people in and makes them relate to the song because they're like, oh, it's like Chad's just our neighbor. It's like he's just like one of the guys. He's not a fucking idiot. He's a genius when it comes to that shit. He wrote it specifically to be like,
you don't get as successful as he is at being an idiot. Like he's a brilliant dude. Like he's played it very well.
So what is it about that song that makes you go?
I think it does have to do with just how very generic those lyrics are, and there's zero depth to them. Yeah. But then again, I can't necessarily say that across the board because I like Limp Bizkit songs where I'm like, oh my, like I think one of it too has to do with just the melody and everything else. Like if a song can have super generic lyrics with very cookie cutter lyrics, but if it's got a good guitar, if it's got a good beat to it, I'll still listen to it.
Yeah.
Whereas with me and Photograph, it's that sappy version of that song. You know what I mean? Right. Where it's just like, oh, like I think one of the reasons too is because it was just like, oh my God, like this is cookie cutter in a lot of aspects, but it's also sappy. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So I think that would be the reason why. But then again, I'm not the guy who's going to sit here and say Nickelback sucks because of this. I agree with you where I think it's a brilliant move on their part to make that song. And I disagree with a lot of the people who hate Nickelback for the sake of hating Nickelback. But that doesn't make any sense to me.
So when you define why you're not into that particular song, it's because it's all those things, but it's also sappy.
Yeah, it's kind of the sappiness of it. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But then again, one of my favorite Nickelback songs is Leader of Men. Like, I think that's a great song.
Which one is that?
That's one of the one of the very first songs.
Yeah.
I put that one in playlists frequently. Yeah. I think that's a great song. But I think kind of the synopsis of this conversation in regards to butt rock is it has more to do with other people's perception of the band rather than what you like. What the hell are you doing?
I'm resetting something because your screen went black and white. Hold on.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Why did it go black and white? It's just totally gone black and white. Well, that's how it is for this.
Well, so I'm black and white, like I'm like in the 1950s TV show.
Yeah, you look super retro and weird. Something happened to the connection. You were fine.
Fantastic, friend. Let's talk like this. It's a news report from 1953. So we're going
actually
to finish
works.
the rest of the podcast.
That totally works. If you could see what I'm
We're going to finish
seeing.
the rest of the podcast like this. And let me tell you something. New Superman comic book coming out. He lifts a car over his head. It is amazing. And we're going to talk about butt rock. What is butt rock?
Are you allowed to say butt rock on the radio in the 1950s?
Probably not.
Probably not, dude.
What would they call it?
What would they call it? I don't know, dude.
Backside rock.
Backside rock. Rear end rock. Rear end rock. They call it rear end rock.
Rear end rock.
Yes.
My goodness. So I mean, I guess really the definition, if you're going by most other people's definitions,
is my definition.
Is what you were talking about.
Well, here's the thing. There's if you go to fucking half the bands that you mentioned, the Sick Puppies will come up in the Spotify thinks you will also like these bands, and Sick Puppies will be down the line of those bands.
Oh, I got a big problem with Spotify, by the way.
Oh,
of
course you do. You're the only one. You're the only one who has something negative to say about Spotify.
No, and like 99% of it, I love it.
Right.
Because that's all I listen to. It's where I get my podcast.
It's where everyone gets this shit.
It's where my music and everything. But one of the problems, they just changed one of their algorithms so that I have this playlist that I use to work out to. And when you scroll to the bottom of the playlists, especially on your phone, it gives you recommendations. Like, hey, maybe add this to your playlist. And before, it wouldn't recycle. It would update those songs. So when you would scroll down, it wasn't always the same. But when you do it now, it's always the same 5 songs that it's recommending. And I'm like, if I haven't picked those yet, I clearly don't fucking want them there.
Yeah.
Like, know that I'm going here, and I click the refresh. So it's got 5 songs. You click the refresh, and then it comes up with 5 new songs. And then if you want to, there's a little button on the side. It's like a plus with a music note. You click that, and then it adds it to that playlist.
I agree. Well, here's the thing. That's the thing that I find hilarious about all. Like, in general, I think people are now, like, the general consumer is finally getting used to the idea that everything that we consume on a digital scale exists in these silos that you pay for a subscription to with your money or with your time that you watch the advertisements. And so when, like, for example, with Facebook, but this is, I don't understand this. Like, I would not be on Facebook if it wasn't for my job. I'm on it for my job, but I don't like it. I don't approve of it. I mean, all the things about how it destroys humanity and the human spirit and blah, blah, blah.
I was going to say one quick question. Is it as political in Australia as it is here in the States?
It's that political everywhere. Well,
I figured it across the globe.
But it's political.
It's now at this point that we're talking about this, where we're going to get flooded with messages from people saying, you need to watch The Social Dilemma.
Oh, no, I know. But here's the thing. This is the point that I was coming back to. If you watch a program like The Social Dilemma, a rational person who cares about themselves should cancel their Facebook account straight away. They should be like, oh, this is not feeding me. I'm feeding it. It's taking from me. It's using me. It's selling me. I'm not getting, but people don't do it. They're just, and it's not, you can go on this whole trajectory of spirituality and addiction, but really you're just used to it. You make the choice, you like it, you weigh up your pros and cons. I get more from it than I feel like it's taken from me, and that's not an accident. So and that's the irony is that, but Facebook is free. Do you pay for your Spotify subscription?
Absolutely.
So that's why it's interesting with what you're talking about, because when you do Facebook's 100% free. You don't pay for anything on Facebook. Mm-hmm. You pay. You sit through the ads, or you flick when the ad comes up, and you go, well, what I was watching isn't worth the ad. I'll flick through, and they note it, and then you move on with your fucking life. But if you sit around and complain, the final part of the conversation is always going to be, well, don't go on Facebook. It's not like you're paying for it. You're not paying for it, so you don't have. It's not fair for you to say it should be like this. Well, no, you're not paying for it. But if you're a subscriber on Spotify, you're paying your 10-month subscription, you get to say, you're allowed to say, hey, man, I'm paying for this and I don't like the way it's going. But you're not going to cancel your subscription. You're really not going to. Are you going to? How many people
on
would
Spotify?
Switch? Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't.
I came close. I came really close. Yeah, but this is. If there's one thing Spotify is notorious for, it's having zero help desk.
Yeah, totally.
Somebody had hacked into my account, and we have a family account. So there's my account, my wife's account, and my daughter has a kid's account.
Right.
And somebody somehow got in, and they kept creating a new account under that family plan.
That's awesome.
And because I would notice as I'm sitting there like listening to music, it would recommend weird stuff. And it was like, you just listened to this. And I'm like, well, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
So when I would go into Spotify, you can look at all of the people that are under your account. And it kept coming up with this one random person. And I'm like, so I would delete that account and then they would re-add it all. And so
awesome.
I'm like, how do I change the settings? Like I changed my password, but it kept popping up. It turns out it was a different password than the one that I was using. And it was a gigantic effing hassle. And it got to the point where I was like, I'm going to move to Google Play or Apple Music or something.
Yeah.
And then thankfully I was able to ditch that one account, and I think I got it taken care of. So.
But there was no one that you could reach out to at Spotify. You tried to find someone to call at Spotify or email at Spotify.
Yeah, it's nothing. It's like, oh, you can go to this help forum where people have been through similar issues, and it's like, well, that's not what I want. That defeats the purpose. Like, I want somebody to be able to like. But that's my point. I want to email someone.
You're still paying for it right now, though, aren't you? They're still getting your money.
Well, I solved the issue.
Yeah, but that's my point. Even though the issue came up, they didn't help you one little bit. They made no change to anything. You took care of your own situation. That might be enough for the consumer from 10 or 20 years ago might have been like, oh, I don't trust this company. I don't like this company. I can get better customer service for the same thing at Google or Google Play or Apple, but we don't move. We don't. Like, I'm totally the same. I have my Spotify. Like I think that's the thing that people. I saw a massive deal go on in Australia. You would never have heard about this. Australia lost their shit, lost their mind for a day because it was on the news that fucking day. Chris Hemsworth had an app. Had an app for fitness. That he helps.
Yeah, he still does, doesn't he?
Yeah, he still does. He had an app for fitness that's whatever the fuck it is. Point being is it was a big deal. It was well promoted. I'm sure it made bazillions of dollars. But in Australia, this made me laugh, dude. This was on 60 Minutes.
In Australia.
In Australia. And it happened worldwide. But Australians were the only ones that cared or wanted to talk about it because Hemsworth is an Aussie. Yeah, he's supposed to be the Aussie, the current Aussie Hugh Jackman. Like this in this decade, he's the Aussie champion. Like 2010s, it was Hugh Jackman. Yeah. He was whatever. So they go on. You sign up. You put in your credit card details, and you say that after 30 days, if I like this trial, you'll start debiting my account. Yeah. And then the thing that happened is
how most apps work.
Yeah, that's it. And then there's a handful of people that went in and actually made a point of saying I don't want to re-up this. So they would just like click a button or they would write an email through or something, and they didn't actually follow the guidelines in the terms and conditions that said if you want to cancel your trial, you have to do ABC. So no one did that. So they were still being charged. Yeah, so they got charged for another month, and it was right when COVID hit, right? So it was the first month or two of COVID when everyone's like, "Well, we all need our excess income, and we have to pull together," and everyone's paranoid about fucking money. And this thing's like, $20-$40 a month for this app to subscribe to this app or whatever it is, which is a lot.
Really?
Whatever the fuck it is, it doesn't matter. It could have been $5, but. The point is that people made a story about Chris Hemsworth has enough money. Why is he stealing ours? And that made the news. And I felt bad for Chris Hemsworth because I'm like, dude, if I get charged again, what do? I go in, I read the terms and conditions. I go, oh, I didn't do it correctly. I write an email to the people and I say, hey, I made a mistake. Can you please refund my money? And you try. And then if they say, and of course, 99% of the time they go, no, you didn't read the terms and conditions. That money's ours. We didn't do anything wrong. You fucked up. So then you go, fuck, all right, I lost $30, $20. And then you do it correctly and you're out. And that's it. And you get on with your fucking life. There was one guy on the interview that was like, I swear to God, he was like, I signed up for the trial and I didn't like it. And I just forgot about it. And then the next month, suddenly this money was taken out of my account and COVID had hit.
Well, that's on you, dude.
Yeah. And I'd lost my job. But this is what really drove me crazy. When I was like, he's sitting there and he was the quintessential Aussie bloke, mate. He had that accent.
Aussie bloke.
He was just the Aussie bloke, just from the inner city, just working as a tradie or a barista, just making coffees for people, just a working class bloke, mate.
What's a tradie?
A tradesman, a guy that goes around in a truck and does plumbing or fixing roofs or
a handyman.
A handyman, any trade,
okay.
Any trade.
Okay.
But we call them tradies. Point is, he literally was like, yeah, I got on there and they debited my card on the second month. And I called them up and they just said, yeah, we're keeping the money. And I'm like, but COVID, I need my money. COVID.
But COVID.
Yeah, and then they sent me an automated response because it happened to a lot of other people. But no, it didn't. A lot of other people didn't read the terms and conditions, didn't disconnect their card correctly and then got charged, which is how these companies make their money. They're built on getting your money from a subscription. You sign up, you sign up, fucking deal with it. But he said, I just wanted my money back, you know. I just felt it was wrong. And if I was in front of Chris Hemsworth, I'd just say, well, it's not very bloody Australian, mate. And I was just like, I was livid. I was like, you walking piece of shit. You are a walking piece of shit. Not only have you not achieved anything with your life, but you fucked up because you're an idiot. And then instead of looking at yourself in the mirror going, man, I really need to pay more attention to this stuff. That was stupid. I just lost.
You blame it somebody else.
You blame it on one of the most successful people of this century to come out of Australia, who's taken his success and leveraged it into more success, which Aussies fucking hate. We hate it when people are successful and then successful again because we look up at them like, oh, well, I'm still right where I was, mate. I'm like, but now I can see how far one person can get. It really shows me how far I haven't got. Shit. And they just fucking hate it. And I'm like, Chris is the bomb. Like, he's... and I say what you want about him, but I'm like, he's successful. He's a great fucking actor. He's done his time. Nothing bad to say about him, but it is un-Australian. It's not very Australian to be successful and successful and successful again and leverage and move things around. It's not in the Australian nature. Because Aussies would much rather you just be the bloke next door. They want you to be Chad from Nickelback from that one song. And then you have one hit, and you come home, and you're like,
"That's a fantastic way to bring it back around."
Yeah,
that's a great callback.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that I thought was hilarious. But it just goes to show people once they in that interview, in that story, there was an expert that actually said that there are billions of dollars spent every year globally on subscriptions that people don't use. People are still signed up for subscriptions that they don't use, that they forget about.
There's now apps that go through your bank account to warn you, hey, do you still want to be paying for this? Like, that's I don't know if that's a big thing in Australia, but
I haven't seen that here yet.
Here in the States. Man, I track everything that comes out of my bank account. I know exactly what I'm paying for. I know I'm paying for Hulu. I know I'm paying for Spotify. I know I'm paying for Sling TV. No, I don't pay for that. I know specifically everything. I know at this point I still don't pay for my Netflix because that gets paid through my cell phone bill. My cell phone company pays for my Netflix. So I know everything, and it always boggles my mind. I'm like, how much shit are people signing up for that they don't know what's coming out of their account? Yeah. And how much fucking money do you have that you don't know what's coming out of your account?
And that's why when people are complaining about I have no money or this and that, and I'm like, okay. My godfather used to be the same way. He was broke most of his life. And I remember a story that he was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't pay these bills. They're going to cut off the electricity. And he had a desk that was typical artist stuff, cluttered with mess and scripts and drawings and notes. And there was 5 checks underneath all that mess. Just sitting there, waiting to be cashed that he just lost, forgotten about, got shuffled around. And it was like more than enough money to cover him for 3 months. And he just forgot to bank it.
There's a guy that I work with who Buzz had gotten into a conversation with this coworker about being able to save money. And this coworker was like, money's too tight, man. I can't put money away. I can't put money into a 401k. I can't put anything into savings. It's just too tight. And then Buzz is like, I would see this person going to the vending machine on a daily basis, spending damn near $20 on shit they could walk across the street to the dollar store and spend $2 on.
Right.
So, I mean, that's like $18 right there that you could be saving. But it's all about where you buy stuff and what you're willing to cut out. And I don't think a lot of people are willing to do that.
It's just the concept of change, man. I remember making a record, literally, right. He had it in his hands. I mean, imagine it's in your hands. I was making my record. I'm in the studio. We're printing out lyrics for the songs that I'm going to do. And I've got 3 songs. And I made a mistake, and I printed them out much larger than they were supposed to be. But I printed them out larger on purpose because I wanted them printed out larger so I could read them really easily without having to look down and do that thing because I'm singing. So I print them out large, print out 10 pages of lyrics for 2 songs, much more than it needs. Engineer comes over, gives me shit. And he's like, dude, this is 10 pages for 2 songs. Like, this is such a waste of paper. And in his other hand, he's got a hamburger that is wrapped in 100 napkins because he just ripped up a bunch of napkins and shoved them in his hand on the way back from the thing. So he's holding a wad of napkins that he knows he doesn't need and isn't going to use. And in the other hand, he's got, this is a waste.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, I literally just pointed at his other hand. I'm like, and what's that? And he was like, oh no, well, these get used. I use these. I'm like,
yeah, the lyrics aren't going to get used at all.
No, it's just how people are wired. It's how you're trained. Like,
it's interesting, kind of how your perception and your perspective creates your reality.
Oh, totally.
Like to him, the burger and the napkins, that was no big deal whatsoever. Yeah. But these 10 pages that you printed out, that's something that needs to be discussed because that's going to be a waste. But it's all about his own perception, and your perception creates your reality.
Which is why when you go back around to, is Facebook as political in Australia? Yeah, it's political because all you have to do is pick the one video on the one issue that you're interested in, and then it feeds you 20 more videos on that issue with that same mentality. And now that perception is your reality. The world is like that now, even though the world isn't like that. It's just that street that day. And there were 20 people with their phones.
And unfortunately, that's what the masses.
It's awesome, but it's a good way to finish up the podcast. So that was Butt Rock.
Fantastic way.
That was Butt Rock.
So what I can do is I can do it kind of like Rocco from Rocco's Modern Life. Hey, Heifer. How you doing?
Heifer.
We're going to go through the socials right here.
Oh, good. I'm glad you remembered. I was going to ask you. Actually, you know what? Hold on a second. I know what you need to do. Because we're black and white and I haven't fixed it, can you do this one like the 1950s radio guy?
Yeah, hold on. Let me I have one more definition for butt rock here.
Bring it.
By the way. So somebody else put this one up on Reddit, and they just said that they found this somewhere else. And it says that butt rock, the term comes from a nationwide advertising campaign on hard rock radio stations in the 90s. Not really sure how that would be possible because there would be no nationwide advertising campaign at that time on radio. But anyway, he says, and it used the tagline rock, nothing but rock. Listeners quickly changed that to nothing but rock, though as in B-U-T-T. Though it refers to anything played on hard rock stations, it commonly is referred to hair bands or used by people to distinguish the bad butt rock from the hard rock that they like. So it looks like what I'm grasping is that butt rock tends to have a
negative connotation,
fluid definition, but it tends to be negative. It's more like what's the stuff you don't like is kind of the stuff that gets locked in on. Where for me, it was really like truly the definition of butt rock was an alternative way of saying hair metal. But it wasn't a derogatory term per se. We knew it was cheesy, but we still listened to it and we still liked it.
Yeah,
like we were still going to go Craig Twisted Sister.
Yeah, I think I want to meet the person. I want to be really close friends with the person who, when you ask them at a party, so what do you listen to? And they're like, butt rock.
Butt rock.
Butt rock. Fucking, you ready? I got my beers, double fist, butt rock. Fuck. Just like you're that guy. Imagine if you met that guy, just someone who was so fucking comfortable in their skin that was like, yeah, I want to fucking listen to Photograph on repeat till Brandon blows his brains out.
Oh, trust me, I've been at parties with more than, and the sad thing is, those were the guys I would get along with because I also liked that music. Yeah. Where I'm like, I like that
best.
shit.
The only difference. The only difference is they don't get introspective. They don't get introspective about it and go, oh, they're just like, I'm just having fun, man. They're so fucking Taoist about it. Like, it is what it is and it ain't what it ain't, man. Yeah.
I think that's got to be our promo for this episode. It is what it is and ain't what it ain't. Yeah. That's fucking fantastic. All right. Well, see, but the other thing, too, about that is that I would frequently make fun of them. Like I had friends who were that guy, that wore the Affliction t-shirt that watched too much UFC. I had ones that actually like trained it, but I also had a lot of friends who would go to like 1 or 2 classes and all of a sudden they were the fucking Billy Badass who would show up to the bar with an Affliction t-shirt thinking that they're just going to beat up the first person that steps on their shoe. Yeah. And it's like, you're that fucking guy. Yeah. But you know, as long as we had the ability to make fun of him, that's why I would keep him around. But anyway, so this is a good way to wrap up this episode of the podcast there. Let me check my notes here. Some of the stuff that we're going to need to get to coming up. A quick tease. We're going to have to look into how Motley Crue came up with the makeup. We need to read have you read the Heroin Diaries?
I've read part of the Heroin Diaries. There's some great stuff
read
in
that.
there.
I
That's
think
better
I've
than
read
the dirt.
chunks too.
That's better.
I think I've got to read the Heroin Diaries. Some of the other stuff we're going to be getting to coming up, rock soundtracks. This is something that you and I were briefly talking about, is when it came to movies that had just phenomenal rock soundtracks. The movie Spawn, End of Days.
Scorpion King.
Scorpion
King, I think, is going to wind up being my favorite. I mean, they're close, but we'll talk about that on the next one.
Yeah, so we've got that coming up. We'll have to get into the Motley Crue thing. But hey, friend, am I on the black and white?
You
there,
are,
friend?
yeah. We've gone to black and white. We are in our time machine.
I'm starting to sound like the Canadians in South Park. Hey, guy. How you doing, guy? Let me tell you something here, buddy. What am I going to go through here? Oh, the socials. The socials. Let me tell you something. We got this new thing, folks. It's called social media. We have Twitter. You can find Shim Moore over on Twitter. It is at Shim Moore. That is SHIMMOORE. That's where you can find Shim Moore. You can also find him over on Facebook. It is at Shim. That's SHIM.
Put it in the nose a bit more. Put it in the nose a bit more. A little bit more than that.
Need to get a little bit.
Yeah.
Need to get a little bit more.
There we
nasally.
go. There we go.
Kind of like this. All right.
Well, see, I took the nasally down.
Why?
Because that was starting to sound too much like South Park Canadian. It was like, hey, guy, like that.
I think you should totally stay
my
up
dad.
there. I think you should stay.
gotta
As
stay
soon
like
as you
this.
started doing
All
it, I
right.
was like, yep, do it. Go.
So I got to go back up there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got Shim Moore. He's over on Facebook. It's got a check mark there if you find Shim. That's where he streams a lot of his stuff. You can also find him on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/Hollywood Rebellion. You can find him over there. You can find me. That's at The Real Brandalorian. That's going to be at The Real Brandalorian. You can use that over on Instagram and on Reddit. Feel free to drop us a message if you have any questions, topics, or anything you'd like discovered. See, I just lost it there. Discussed on Rockstar 101. And
That's what
else
does it.
I have to cover here? Oh, we got to thank our supporters. If you head on over to anchor.fm/Rockstar101, you can be a supporter. Victoria, Veronica, and Taryn, of course, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being a supporter of this podcast. And also, if you are watching this on Shim's YouTube channel, or if you're over on, what is it, your Discord?
You lost
Right
it,
now?
mate. You lost it. I'm on Discord now for the patrons, yeah.
If you're on the Discord right now and you're looking at my beard and you think, oh my goodness, that is a majestic beard right there. I absolutely love how this man's beard looks. You too can get this look just by going to The Beard Struggle. That is the company. They've got oils, they've got balms, they've got shampoos. That is how you get this look for your beard. Just go to The Beard Struggle and at checkout use... What's my code again? Brandalorian. Use Brandalorian at checkout, and you'll get a discount on your products from The Beard Struggle. You saying I got multiple personalities for it?
I think that was dope. We gotta do that every time. Oh, is that all of them?
I'm telling you, I think so. I hope so. I don't know. I'm starting to stress out here. I
Okay,
don't know why.
we'll be fine.
No, but see, that's the thing. Like, I think when we get to the socials and stuff, I just got to do a different voice or something every time.
Yeah.
Because if you listen to this podcast frequently,
yeah,
you're like,
you're
oh
out.
shit, I know what
You're
they're
fucking
doing.
out.
Like, I
You're
know the
out.
social medias.
Yeah.
I know what they're doing at this point. I know how to reach out to them. Nobody does, man. Send us a message. Hit us up.
Because
Let us
no
know
one
if
cares
there's-
about who we are and what we do.
Nobody gives a fuck about us except for Victoria, Veronica, and Taryn. Thank
That's
you.
fine by me.
I mean, they are supporters. If you do want to become a supporter, again, that's anchor.fm/Rockstar.
Just special privileges. Special privileges.
What the fuck is that?
I don't know, man. I'm trying to keep up with your voices. Anyway, we've gone way
Listen here,
over
friend,
time.
Let me tell you something.
We've gone over time, so we got to wrap this up. His name is Shim. He's the Rockstar.
His name is Brandon. He is the fucking
DJ.
He's the DJ, but he's the go sign it off.
God, class dismissed.